A biker knelt before a little girl. No one expected what happened next.
I still remember that evening clear as day, the hum of engines outside, the smell of leather and whiskey mixing with the rain that had just started to fall. Our little roadside bar sat on the edge of nowhere, halfway between the mountains and the desert. Folks called it the Rusty Horse. It wasn't much: creaky floors, scarred tables, and a jukebox that hadn't worked right in years. But it was home to men who carried stories on their backs, written in dust and scars.
And that night, it became home to a miracle too. Part 1. Hook and Setup, a quiet bar and a sudden entrance.
It had been a long day. The air outside was heavy with the smell of wet earth, and the bikers had rolled in one by one, parking their machines like old horses lined up after a ride. I was behind the counter, wiping glasses and pretending not to listen as they swapped tales about the road, fights, crashes, and heartbreaks. The leader, Hawk, sat at the far end of the bar, his gray hair falling past his shoulders, his white beard gleaming under the low lights. He was the kind of man silence followed, strong, rough, but somehow gentle around the edges when he thought no one was watching. That's when the door creaked open. At first, no one looked up. We all figured it was another drifter, but when the light from outside cut through the smoke and I saw the tiny pink backpack, I froze. She couldn't have been more than 7. Blonde ponytail, jeans too long for her legs, and little sneakers covered in mud. She stepped inside like she'd walked into a church, wide-eyed and serious. The room went dead quiet. Every man turned his head, leather creaking as they shifted in their seats. You could have heard a pin drop between the pool balls clinking in the distance.
And then, she said something that didn't sound like it belonged to a child at all.
Are you the man they call Hawk? Part 2. Conflict and Connection, a Child's Courage and a Broken Heart. I glanced toward Hawk, expecting him to brush her off. But instead, he turned slowly, his deep voice cutting through the silence.
Depends who's askin', little one. Her chin lifted, trembling but brave. My mama said you used to ride with my daddy.
You could almost hear hearts stop beating. The younger men at the tables exchanged confused glances. The bartender froze mid-polish. Hawk's weathered face went pale under the yellow light. For the first time since I'd known him, he didn't look like a man of steel. He looked human.
He pushed himself off the stool, boots heavy on the wood floor. Then he did something that made every man in that room stand taller, and every woman's eyes burn with tears.
He knelt. Right there in front of that little girl, this mountain of a man dropped to one knee.
Who was your daddy, sweetheart? He asked, his voice breaking on the last word.
She unzipped that pink backpack and pulled out a faded photograph, an old Polaroid of 2 young bikers smiling, arms thrown around each other, sun setting behind them. This one, she whispered. Mama said he never came home from the road. She said you were his brother. Hawk reached out, hands shaking as he took the photo. I could see the memory hit him like thunder. The color drained from his face, and his eyes glistened in the dim light.
He whispered. Your daddy, he saved my life more than once. The girl nodded solemnly. Mama said to find you. Said you'd tell me the truth.
Hawk looked at her, then at the rest of the men watching, every one of them suddenly remembering the things they'd lost out there on the road. The laughter faded, the smoke seemed to clear, and the air filled with something heavier than whiskey, grief. He swallowed hard. Your daddy was the best man I ever knew, he said softly. He didn't die running from trouble, he died trying to protect it.
The girl's lip trembled. Mama said, he was a hero.
He was, Hawk whispered, voice cracking. And so are you, for coming here.
Part 3. Resolution and Reflection, a new kind of family.
By then, no one in that bar could hold it together. One of the younger bikers reached up to wipe his eyes. The bartender turned away, pretending to clean a glass that didn't need it.
Hawk stood slowly, still holding that photograph. Then he laid his large, scarred hand gently on the girl's small shoulder.
You got somewhere to stay tonight? He asked. She shook her head. Mama's sick. She couldn't come. He took a deep breath, looked at the men around him, men who'd lived hard and fast and thought they'd seen it all. Then tonight, he said quietly, you ain't alone. He turned to me. Lydia, Fix her a plate. Something warm. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. As I set a steaming bowl of stew in front of the little girl, I saw Hawk pull that silver chain from his pocket, the one that always hung from his belt. On the end was a small, worn metal emblem, half an angel wing, half a motorcycle wheel. He handed it to her. Your daddy carried the other half, he said softly. Now you've got his spirit with you. She looked up at him, tears streaking her cheeks. Thank you, she whispered. He smiled. Not the grin of a tough biker, but the kind of smile that only comes from a man who's found redemption in the most unexpected place. And for a moment, the Rusty Horse wasn't just a biker bar anymore. It was a home. A place where lost souls found something worth believing in again. When the girl finally fell asleep on one of the old leather couches, Hawk sat beside her for hours, keeping watch. The jukebox hummed quietly in the background, playing an old country song about forgiveness and roads that never end.
I'll never forget how he looked that night, strong, silent, and finally at peace.
Sometimes the West teaches you that love doesn't always come wrapped in romance. Sometimes, it rides in on two wheels and finds its way into a hardened man's heart, through a little girl with a pink backpack. And though no one expected what happened that night, maybe that's how grace works. It shows up quietly, and leaves you forever changed. Out here, the road never really ends. It just leads us closer to the truth we've been riding toward all along.